For this exercise, we're going to be creating a template and set of Illustrator actions that help you draw and create graphics in isometric perspective. To do this, we're going to get started by going up to File and creating a new document. Now this document eventually will be saved as a template, but for now we can just start off as a regular document. As far as the sizes go, we'll set the width and the height of it to be exactly 20 by 20 inches. We only need one artboard and we don't need any bleed. Do, however, make sure you're working in RGB color mode. And we'll say create and open it up. The first thing we need to do is to create a simple grid of 100 lines that are evenly spaced. To do this, if you look underneath your line segment tool, there's a rectangular grid tool. Now with this tool, you can always click and drag to create a simple grid, but we want to dial in exactly what we want. So I'm going to click once in the middle of my document. We're going to set the width to be 20 by 20. The number of horizontal dividers will be set to 0, and the number of vertical dividers will be set to 100. Make sure the skew is set to 0% as well. When we say OK, this will give us a 100 grid of single vertical lines. And once it's created, we can take it and carefully move it into position right on top of our document. Perfect. The next thing we want to do is to make a copy of this grid, and we want to rotate it so that it's at a 60-degree angle. So with our lines still selected, go up to Object, Transform, and choose Rotate. With the Rotate dialog box open, you can dial in 60 degrees rotation and make sure to press Copy to see it copied and placed onto here. The next thing we need to do is to make a reflection of this new rotated set of lines. So with the new rotated line still selected, go up to Object, Transform, and in this case we want Reflect. As far as the options for this one goes, we want to rotate or reflect across the vertical axis, and we'll do Copy for that. And now you can see we've got our second copy. The final thing we need to do is to reposition our lines. If I zoom in really close, you can see how all of our vertical lines are kind of offset, and they're not exactly lining up with the cross sections between our diagonal lines. So very carefully, click on the vertical lines, and we can scooch those over until they evenly are placed right there in the center of our document. Now when we zoom out, you can see that our grid is perfectly set up. The last thing that we need to do is to scale this up and set it up as a template. So I'm going to select all of the lines one more time. If you hold down Shift and Option, you can click and drag. Let's drag it up until all of our entire 20 by 20 area is nice and covered, so we don't have any extra bits on the side that don't have any part of the lines. The last thing that we need to do is to convert these lines into a simple grid. So once again, I'm going to do Command A and select all of our artwork, go up to View, down to Guides, and choose Make Guides. This is going to convert your lines from editable lines into a solid grid now that we can work with, and we can zoom in, and we can even turn it on and off as necessary. One thing that I like to do is also lock my guides down so I don't accidentally move them. So if you want, you can go up to View, back down to Guides, and you can make sure it says to lock the guides. In my case, it's already locked. The final thing that we want to do with this template is to open up our Layers panel. And for our layers, I'm going to set Layer 1 as being our grid guide layer. And I'll lock that down. And then I can create a new layer on top of it. We can call this Artwork. Oops, actually double-clicked it, opened it up here. Let's give it the layer name of Artwork and say OK to that. Now that we've got this set up and created, let's save this as a template. Go up to File, down to Save As. We'll give our template the title name of Isometric Template. Change the format from Adobe Illustrator to an Adobe Illustrator Template, AIT. And make sure you know where it's saving to. I'm going to save mine to the desktop. We'll hit Save and close that out as well. Now with it still open, it's still just a template file, and we can always make edits and changes to this. However, once we go to close out our template, then if we go on top of my desktop, let's see if I can find it. So here's my isometric template right here. When I double click it, this will automatically give me a blank document that's got my lines, grids, and even my layers nice and set up the way I want to. Once you're done with this, you're going to upload the Illustrator template to the Moodle file. The second half of this exercise is going to show you how to create a set of actions for creating artwork and turning those into an isometric perspective. To create an action set in Illustrator, let's open up our Actions panel. Go to Window, choose Actions. Now by default, Illustrator comes with a set of default actions that you can easily use. What I like to do is to collapse these default folder and create a new folder set. We're going to call this Isometric Transformations. We'll say OK to that. All of our new ones are going to be saved inside of this folder. The first thing we want to do is to create a simple rectangle to which we can apply all of our different edits to. So I'm going to go over to my Tools panel, grab your rectangle tool, hold down Shift as you click and drag to create a perfect square. I like to use a perfect square because it gives us a sense of exactly what's going on, and it's the best one to showcase these different angles. So with a perfect rectangle or perfect square created, let's go to our Actions panel and create a new action. Clicking on the New Action button, we'll call this action Left Transformation. Make sure the set is your isometric transformations set, and we'll choose Record. Now be very careful about what you click and do. Everything that you do in Illustrator now is going to be recorded within your actions. Right now you can see I've got my object selected already. So the first thing I want to do is to scale it down. We'll go up to Object, Transform, and let's choose Scale. With the Scale dialog box open, we'll select Non-Uniform, and we're going to set the vertical scaling to be 86.602. We'll say OK. You can see that will squash down our little square. The next thing we want to do is to shear our tool. We'll go up to Object, Transform, and Shear. Since this one's going to the left, we're going to set our shear angle to be a -30. We'll keep everything else the same and say OK to that. You can see how it flops it that way. The final thing we want to do is to do a rotation. We'll go up to Object, Transform, and then Rotate. This rotation will be a -30 as well. We'll say OK to this. You can see how it rotates it to this side. Once we've done those three things, you can check out your Actions panel and see how we've applied each one to this one. Now that we're finished, we can hit the Stop button, and it'll automatically save as our left transformation. If you've made a mistake at any point, simply go back, select your action and delete it, and then go back and re-record it. Now that we've done the left, let's do a top transformation. We'll delete away our little rectangle. Let's get our square and draw a new square. With our new square selected, again, we'll return to our Actions panel and make a new action. This time it's going to be top transformation. We'll hit Record. Our square is already selected, so we'll go up to Object, Transform, and choose Scale. Notice that it remembered the last time we scaled it vertically, so all we have to do is say OK. It scaled it down. Then we can go back to Object, Transform, and let's shear. This time, instead of doing -30, we're going to do a +30 as our angle, and say OK. And then finally, we'll go to Object, Transform, and let's rotate it. This time, we're going to keep it as a -30 as well. When we say OK, you can see it rotates it into place. Finally, return to your Actions and hit the Stop button. The last one we need to do is a right transformation. Again, I'll delete away my little square. Let's grab our rectangle tool again. This time we'll click and drag and draw another perfect square. Return to our Actions panel. Let's create a new action. This time it'll be the right transformation. We'll record. Again, I've got my object already selected, so all I have to do is go to Object, Transform. We're going to scale it down. Again, it remembers the vertical scaling, and we'll say OK to that. Return to Object, Transform, and let's shear it. Our shear angle is going to be a positive 30 degrees. We'll say OK to that. And then finally, we'll go to Object and Transform, and let's rotate it. This angle of rotation is also going to be a positive 30 degrees. We'll say OK to that. Once that's done in our Actions panel, we can hit the Stop button, and now all three of our transformations are saved up. Now, your actions by default are going to be saved in whatever program you're working on your computer, so they'll always be there. But if you do want to save these actions and put them onto another computer, they're already inside of a folder, so you can select the folder and click on the Actions options at the very top right-hand side. Choose Save Actions, and you can save these as isometric transformation action files. In my case, I'll save them on the desktop, and we'll hit Save. Now I can take this action file and send it to anybody else, or be able to use it for on another computer. This is what an action file looks like. To use these actions is quite simple. All you need to do is to create whatever artwork you want, but do so in a flat manner. So in our case, I'll just draw off 3 different sides of what would be a simple cube. If I wanted to take this and let this be my left side, so I've drawn it off, go to your left transformation and hit the play button, and it automatically goes through and does all the scaling, shearing, and rotating of that side. Same way for the top. Choose your top art, choose the top transformation, and say play, and it places it into place. So now I've got that side done. Let's do the same for the right side. Choose right transformation and play it. Now I can place this right action on that side. So you can see how this saves a lot of time for creating your drawings and placing everything into the proper perspective.